Hello everybody. In this video I will be overviewing the syllabus. Mostly I will begin with showing you the structure of the syllabus, sort of what the sections are, and then coming back to some of the sections and highlighting some items that I think are important. If you have questions that go beyond what I focus on in this video, then you can use the VoiceThread commenting tool, and or you can also use the discussion boards that are going to be, or that are actually already in the module 0 orientation, in the section for the orientation module. You see a discussion board, so you can use either the VoiceThread commenting tool, which I think is better, or you can use the discussion board that is in the orientation. That's what I meant. Now, at the moment, as you can see, we are in the syllabus page, and this will be here throughout the quarter. And on the right side, as you might see here, you have sort of the with the weights for the different types of assignments or deliverables you're going to be doing for or throughout the quarter. This is automatically generated by the system, and so it shows you sort of the weights by type of assignment, actually, which is fine. But notice that later in the syllabus below, there will be a different way to look at this, especially with respect to the postings, to the class participation postings, or the CP type of assignments. In any case, let's go back to this. About, I think there are 10 or 11 sections here. They're all in orange or reddish. There's the instructor information section, course description, learning outcomes, the course outline and topics, the type of course, something about Canvas and MyLab. I'll explain that in a little more in a second. Some information on the textbook. I don't know why the picture is not working, so I might fix that eventually, or maybe not. We'll see. There's a section on communication. That's important because we are online, and so there are different ways to communicate. And so this actually something you might want to read and to understand what's the best way to do this throughout the quarter. Some detail on the types of course assignments. I'll come back to that in a bit. The grading components, so I'll also talk about this in a bit. The grading scale, some important course policies, some information on other resources you might access throughout the quarter, the class calendar, very, very important. I'll come back to this. And some additional notes here. And finally, something about integrity and the way I visit that, the way I view teaching, my philosophy. At the bottom of this syllabus, there's a Canvas automatically generated sort of calendar. And again, this is Canvas generated, and so it's good in a certain way, but I would not rely on this because this does not always reflect what my intent is. What you need to always focus on or rely on is the calendar itself. That really is always updated, and that's what I'm trying to. That's the intent that I want. And so at times what I do is I either extend something or I move something, and that the system doesn't understand what I really want. So this is not going to be absolutely reflective of the intent or the deadline that is effective for a certain item or a certain deliverable. So let me go all the way back up to start with a few highlights. So in the instructor information section, all I want to say is that use inbox to communicate with me, which is right there. See how can I get back to this. And so by using this, we use the inbox instead of using email. That's important because a lot of my I get a lot of junk in my email address, and sometimes things do get lost, and I don't want to lose your email. And so Inbox keeps everything very organized, and so you know where to go. I know where to go to find your messages. Again, so please only use Inbox in Canvas to communicate throughout the quarter. There are no office hours. Everything is virtual. There's going to be a virtual office hour thread under or inside of the module 0 area, and you see it there later. And you see that you can always use that if you need to ask me questions about the class. In the course description, the only thing I'm going to be focusing on is this. I'm assuming you've completed Accounting 1A, so you are very familiar. Actually, not familiar, but you have a solid understanding of the accounting cycle and how to debit and credit things, how to bookkeep, basically. Let's go to the topics. Notice that topics basically include chapter 10 through chapter 17. I have this backwards simply because at times I do assign a project that relies on chapter 17, so this gives you a little more time. By covering 17 first, it gives you a little more time to do the project. So that's the reason this is backwards, but either way it's fine. Notice that midterm 1 is based on the first 3 chapters that we will be covering. Midterm 2 is the next 3, and then final exam is based on this. On the last 2 chapters. This section gives you an overview of the accounting program at Foothill. We've designed a really robust and comprehensive accounting program that really rivals many of our universities locally and nationwide, actually. So it's a good one. You can obviously look at this, and if you have questions about the program, let me know. Okay, either in my office hours discussion thread or through Inbox. Let's see. The course type again is online, and we are using Canvas, which, this is the site that you're on. You're already on Canvas. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to see this. And we're using something called My Lab or MAL, or My Accounting Lab. It's an external tool that we use for testing and for homework and for other very, very nice tools that will actually reinforce and sort of help you go deeper into how to solve problems, for example, or how to think about a concept. There will be more info on this, later. Come back to that. The textbook is the 12th edition of Holmgren, and if you took Accounting 1A, which we probably did at Foothill, you already have the book, and you don't have to buy it again. And as you can see, Accounting 1A covered the first 9 chapters. 1B will be covering the next 8, and the last few chapters in the book will be covered in Accounting 1C. And so when you pay for the book, either using this option A or this option B, either way, you are buying the book and the access to My Lab for all 3 courses. The option A includes the access code for My Lab, which is required. And within that My Lab account, you also have an e-text, so you can read the book, make notes, doodle, whatever you want there, and it's kind of nice. It's a very nice feature, but it's an e-text. So some people rather do reading on a printed book. So if that's the case, then you can use option B. And keep in mind that you might want to get the books ahead of time if you haven't done it yet. And I believe the bookstore will send you an email from redshelf.com that includes some instructions as to how to get an access code, a temporary access code. Whether you buy it or not at that point, that doesn't matter. You're going to get the instructions for the access code, and that access code will either be temporary or permanent. It depends on whether you buy it right there and then or you don't. Eventually, once you use that that access code in the My Lab registration process, once you're inside of the class after your first day of class, then you use that access code to either get 14 days access for free, but at the end of that, you will need to upgrade. And there will be another section, another video that will sort of walk you through that. And so at this point, no worries about doing that now. So that's your choice. So let me get into that maybe in a different video, more detail. Let's see now, where am I? Communication. This is an online class, so obviously we have different ways to communicate. Announcements are one-way communications from me to you, and I keep you updated on the class or any changes with announcements. There will be a little more about these different communication types in different parts of the orientation. So I'll just go on and say basically very quickly, do not use email, inbox again. Discussion forums, that's what you use to discuss the content of the class. My turnaround time is usually 24 to 48 hours for discussion postings, but actually I'm much faster than that. I'm there all the time. So normally it's within the day. Normally, not always. Now, inbox messages are basically very quick. I scan my inbox at least twice a day, if not a lot more. So I am much more responsive, to my inbox messages than I am to the discussions, which should make sense. In terms of the types of assignments, basically, or what I call deliverables that make up your final grade, there are what I call check-ins, and these are just, this is very simple. Sort of tasks that I ask you to do. You simply come in on Monday or Tuesday of each week to sort of get you inside of the class early in the week. That's quite important. So that's what that is for. This class participation postings it's once per week per chapter, and again it's very simple. Just one posting in any discussion thread for that module, and you'll be fine. Hopefully it's a good posting. The better, the more substantive, the better, right? But I don't really check that much into the quality of the posting. But so my point there is to try to get you inside of the discussions, and I'm hoping that once you're there, you're motivated to engage a lot more. In an online class, engaging through the discussions is really, really important. So that's what that is. There's going to be a reflection paper at the end of the class. That is part of your assignment. Now, I mean, this is actually a reflection posting. This is not part of your class, actually. So disregard that. I was talking about this paper on the bottom here. There will be a reflection paper actually at the end, or you can also do a project. And so I'll explain that later in the quarter. There are actually reading checks, which are small quizzes, one for each chapter. And then there's also homework for each chapter, and I assign certain exercises. There will be a couple of midterms and a final. Now, how much are these weighed? Well, here they are in the grading components section. You will see that there is the check-ins are very simple, as I said before, and you do one per week from weeks 2 through week 11, and so that gives you 10 weeks of 10 check-ins. And each of them is like 0.1, because the overall grade weight for that category is 1 point only, so that's 1%. But again, this makes a difference at the end. If you're very close to the next level of grade, then this will actually either help you or not. I'm gonna go down here to the scale. So again, if you're right there at the A- level at 92.99, having that posting at the right time will obviously be important. So let me go back to this. 10 postings once per week, like I said before. Again, weeks 2 through 11, one per week. Overall category weight is 9%, so each of the postings is 0.9. Reading checks, there are 8 chapters, so there are 8 reading checks. The lowest grade is dropped And so you only 7 counts. So 7 times 1 is 7% total. There are 8 homework again, 8 chapters, one homework per chapter, so there are 8 of them. The 2 lowest are dropped, so 6 times 3 points each, that's 18% of your overall grade. 2 midterm exams at 15 points each, 30% of the grade. The reflection paper or the project will be 5 points of 5%. The final exam will be 30%. There's no extra credit, at least not at the moment. If there is some, it will be announced. Usually there's a couple of points here and there. Notice that, just FYI, when you read the details on the assignments, you will notice that the homework and the reading checks, which make up about 25 points of your overall grade, are sort of really easy in terms of the number of tries and the time that you get to solve these things or to submit these things. You have the whole week. They are unlimited times and unlimited tries. So it's actually, you should be able to maximize those points. Keep that in mind. Here's the grading scale. You know that already, I'm sure. By the way, on this note here, I'm going to go all the way down below the calendar, and then I'm going to show you that there's something that relates to bump ups. I always get questions on bump ups at the end of the quarter, and I go, well, there are no bump ups. If you were at 92.99, that is an A-, unless you do these 2 things here. And so look at these, look at this policy, and then keep that in mind as you go through the quarter. Since I'm already here, I want to just show you that there's actually a statement of integrity and so on. So please read this, and also something about my philosophy. By the way, let's see. Let me go back. Let me go back to where I was. Where was I? Oh, I was here. Let's see. By the way, there's something called alt track students. At times I mentioned this. Disregard all of that. Okay, it doesn't really matter. I kept some of the discussion threads that relate to this. It has certain weird requirements. Don't worry about the requirements. Just sort of use it as a general and as a normal discussion thread. So just disregard the alt stuff. Policies. I think read all these on your own. But the main one that I want to sort of mention at this point is this. There are no late assignments accepted, although there are some sometimes. Depends on the situation. But don't count on that. But if there are some late assignments allowed, there will be some percentage reduction on your scores normally. Also, since there are some drops, as I mentioned up above, use the drops strategically, meaning don't just drop it because you don't want to do something. I think that you're better off dropping it obviously when you need it, such as when you're sick, or you have some technical issues with the internet, or your internet service provider gives you some issues, and so on and so on. So be smart about this. Let's see. There's also another thing that I want to mention at this point, is that there's a drop and withdrawal deadline that is quite important. The drop deadline is approximately like either the first or second week of the quarter, normally the second week in regular quarters. And at that point, you can drop before that, and you get a refund, and you also don't get even a W on your transcript. The class doesn't exist in your records. Once you're past that, between weeks 2 and week 8, if you drop at any point during that period, then you get a W, and you don't get a refund, I think. So keep that in mind. But you can still withdraw from the class up to about 75% of the class, so approximately week 8 in regular quarters. In other quarters, it depends on what 75% means. So check the calendar for dropping and withdrawing on the college website. It's quite important. Once you go past week 8, you cannot drop, you cannot withdraw, period. So whatever score you get, it is what you get at that point. So keep that in mind as you go through the quarter, please. Here is the section that shows you something about other resources you might want to take advantage of, especially like tutoring services if you're able to come to campus. And there are things that you might want to look into. In terms of the calendar, as you can see, the calendar is organized by week. It gives you the start of the week, usually the Monday. So Monday, like in our first week, we start on Monday week, April 8th. In the summer will be, I think it's July 1st or 2nd, I forget. So in any case, I'm mentioning summer because I may reuse this video for the summer class. The topic is under this column, and so as you can see, for week number 1, we have an orientation. There's some tasks you need to submit by Sunday. Now, the orientation tasks, I think you really want to do it as early as possible. So they have a deadline of either Wednesday or Thursday, but usually I extend to Sunday. So just keep that in mind. Do it as quickly as possible and get into chapter 10 right away, plant assets. There's a reading check due on the first week, at the end of the first week. If I'm going to be using this in the summer, I'll share with you summer students that homework 10, the homework related to chapter 10, will also be due in that first week. So keep that in mind. But for the spring quarter, it's actually due in the second week. So in terms of chapter 10, we use 2 weeks because you're actually just getting up to speed with the class. So we have 2 weeks. Then in week number 3, we actually have chapter 11. We cover both. We cover the chapter in 1 week, which means that you're going to do both the reading check and the homework in the same week. And normally quizzes or reading checks are due midweek, and normally that means Wednesday. In most cases, not always. And there's a Sunday deadline for the homework. The CP postings are also always at the end of the week. There's also something called optional Excel tasks. These are completely optional. They're not part of your grade. It's just for you to practice Excel if you wish. You don't have to do these, okay? And again, keep going, the same format. Midterms are due normally on a Sunday, or sometimes they're due in the middle of the week. The midterm exam is open either either 2 or 3 days at a time, so you can access the exams throughout that period of time. But once you're there, you're required to finish it in that one sitting. You normally about 2 to 2.5 hours. And so this one, for example, it opens on Friday, and then it closes on Sunday. It's just to give you a little bit of detail about how we do exams. And second exam will be later in the quarter. In this case, will be week 8. Again, for summer students, it will be a different schedule, but basically the same process. And then Sunday, reflection paper and the final exam will be due at the end of the quarter. And then beyond that, I guess there's some important notes you might want to read as well. But that's it. I think we're done with the syllabus. I'm going to go all the way up. If you have any questions, use the commenting tool by VoiceThread. You'll see it at the center bottom of the screen. Or you can also use the discussion threads in the orientation module. Enjoy. Take care.